What if I told you that Oscar Piastri doesn't gain positions at the start because of lightning-fast reflexes, but because his McLaren is already accelerating before everyone else? Because what happened at the 2026 Japanese Grand Prix wasn't just a great reaction. It was something far deeper, a hidden advantage that gave the McLaren more than 20 kilometers per hour at the most critical moment of the entire race, while Mercedes was already losing before the lights even went out. And here's the shocking part. It's not that Mercedes lacks power, it's that they are using that power at the wrong time. The complete opposite of McLaren, which has discovered a subtle weakness in the regulations and turned the race start into its most lethal weapon. So the question becomes unavoidable. Are we witnessing the beginning of a new era in Formula One? An era where races are decided in the first 3 seconds, and where Mercedes is desperately trying to copy something it doesn't fully understand. Because everything begins in a moment, most fans overlook those silent seconds before the lights go out, when it seems like nothing is happening, but in reality, that's exactly where McLaren is already starting to win the race. While other teams focus on the driver's reaction, the clutch, and initial traction, McLaren is playing a completely different game. They are preparing a massive release of energy, one that no other car on the grid can match. And most importantly, they release it at the exact moment the regulations still allow them to maximize the advantage. This is where the first key concept appears, something that completely changes the logic of modern Formula One. Backloaded energy deployment. A strategy that breaks years of conventional thinking. Instead of spreading energy evenly across the lap, McLaren saves it, stores it, builds it up, and then unleashes everything in a single explosive moment, the race start. This isn't a small tweak. It's a radical philosophical shift, because it means sacrificing performance in other parts of the lap just to create a brutal spike of power when the race begins. A sacrifice that most teams simply aren't willing to make. But the result is devastating. When the lights go out, Piastri isn't just launching well, he's launching with a structural advantage. At that exact moment, his car has more available energy than any other car on the grid. And that translates into something almost unnatural in Formula One. More than 20 kilometers per hour of speed difference within just a few meters. An absurd gap that allows him to overtake rivals without fighting, without risking contact, simply driving past them with pure acceleration. And this is where Mercedes starts to look completely exposed, because their philosophy is the exact opposite. Mercedes spreads its energy evenly throughout the lap. They aim for consistency, balance, overall efficiency. But that philosophy comes with a price. When the most important moment arrives, the race start, they have nothing extra left to deploy. Their advantage has already been spent earlier in the lap. The data makes this painfully clear. In certain sections of the circuit, Mercedes can actually reach higher top speeds than McLaren. But by then, it's already too late. Because the real battle isn't being decided there. It's being decided in the first seconds after the lights go out. And in that moment, Mercedes is losing badly. This is the real turning point. What we are seeing is not just a better start. It's a complete redefinition of how positions are gained in modern Formula One. In this new logic, energy management becomes more important than aerodynamics, at least in that critical instant. And McLaren has found an advantage that doesn't depend on the driver. It depends on the system, which makes it far more dangerous. And the most worrying part for Mercedes, this is not something that can be fixed with a simple upgrade. Because copying McLaren's idea would require redesigning the entire philosophy of their car. Its balance, its energy strategy, its operating logic, and that opens up a much bigger problem. If Mercedes tries to copy McLaren, they could lose the one thing that still keeps them competitive across the rest of the lap. Because the MCL40 isn't just using a clever trick, the entire car is designed around this philosophy. From how it harvests energy, to how it stores it, to how the system decides the exact moment to release it. And here's where the real limitation appears. Under the 2026 ERS regulations, teams no longer have the same freedom to recharge and deploy energy whenever they want. They must make a fundamental choice. Either you are strong at the start, or you are strong during the lap. But you cannot maximize both at the same time. McLaren already made its decision, and it was an extreme one. They bet everything on that explosive launch, that violent burst of power that dominates the start. And yes, that means the car might be weaker in other parts of the circuit. But by then, it no longer matters, because they already control track position. Now imagine the dilemma Mercedes faces. Their car was built around the opposite philosophy: constant efficiency, smooth deployment, balanced performance across the entire lap. A system designed to be competitive everywhere, but dominant nowhere. If they try to copy McLaren, they would have to break their own identity, rewrite energy maps, change deployment logic, and possibly sacrifice their advantage in high-speed sections. That's a massive risk, because they could end up with the worst possible outcome: a car that isn't explosive like McLaren, and no longer consistent like the Mercedes philosophy intended. In fact, the data already hints at this trap. Mercedes can reach 330 kilometers per hour in certain zones faster than McLaren. But that advantage disappears exactly where it matters most: at the start, because by the time the lap ends, Mercedes has already reached its energy recharge limits, meaning the system simply has nothing left to unleash when the lights go out. So the problem isn't that Mercedes can't copy McLaren, it's that doing so could create weaknesses across the rest of the race. And in Formula One, that kind of compromise can cost entire championships. Meanwhile, McLaren has already turned this idea into a repeatable weapon. It's not a one-off advantage, it's a system, a philosophy, a strategic framework that can control races from the very first second. And this is where the tension becomes real. If Mercedes doesn't copy it, they will continue losing positions at the start, race after race. But if they do copy it, they risk destroying the balance of their entire car. There is no easy solution, no safe path. And that's why this story goes far beyond one clever engineering idea. Because what McLaren has done may have changed the fundamental logic of modern Formula One. For years, the goal was simple: build the fastest and most balanced car across the entire lap. But McLaren has proven something different. You don't need to be the best everywhere. You only need to be the best at the exact moment that matters most. And in modern Formula One, that moment might be the race start. Because when you reach turn 1 inch the lead, everything changes. You get clean air, better tire management, control over race pace, and the ability to force every other team to react to your strategy instead of their own. A massive cascading advantage, created in a single instant. And here's the most dangerous part for the rest of the grid. This advantage is almost invisible. It's not a new wing. It's not a dramatic aerodynamic innovation. It's software, energy logic, applied engineering intelligence. The kind of advantage that is far harder to detect and even harder to copy. Which is why Mercedes now finds itself trapped. Do nothing and keep losing races at the start. Or take the risk, redesign their energy philosophy, and step into completely unknown territory. A decision without guarantees. A gamble that could define the next era of Formula One. Because if Mercedes eventually makes that leap, the entire grid will follow. And suddenly the biggest battle in Formula One will no longer be about aerodynamics. It will become a war for energy control, an invisible war, but one that could decide every race before the first corner. All because of one detail many people missed. A launch, a 20 kilometers per hour advantage, and a secret that everyone now wants to copy, but very few truly understand. Because in the end, Formula One may be entering a new reality. The fastest car doesn't always win. The car that understands the moment wins. And right now, McLaren seems to understand that moment better than anyone else.